for some reason, in case you don't know who I am and you're from this region, I am Nick Daniels, the Southwest Regional Vice President. I started in the Marine Corps for my air traffic career, 1998 to 2003. To date myself specifically, I'm 45 years old, and I ended up getting out of the Marine Corps. I injured myself, getting ready to go on a deployment, and life took its own direction and brought me here today. I was ended up being hired by the FA to Addison Tower in 2003, and then I spent from 2003 to 2005 there. Moved over to Fort Worth Center and had the opportunity and chance to serve in almost every capacity at Fort Worth Center, from area rep in about I think the beginning of end of '06, beginning of '07, right as the White Book went into effect. Secretary, Vice President, 6 years as a FAC rep, alternate regional vice president for 3 years, and now the honor of being the regional vice president and serving in this capacity. I do have an 18-year-old son, but most of you have seen me come to your facility, and I've likely talked about him. And he is a senior in high school right now. Very proud of him and what all he is out accomplishing and doing. He's a private pilot and going from there. And my 6-year-old daughter, Skylie, who is the absolute, I would say, apple of my eye. She has changed my entire world and does definitely rule it as well as a 6-year-old girl. And Skylie and I have the opportunity to, embark on all sorts of wonderful things together. And one of the things that she's most excited about is when she gets to go to the air traffic control facilities and see all you. So for every person that she's got to see along the trail and the path, thank you to each of you for making her feel like the family as well. So with that being said, great to see you, Southwest Region. Jamal, over to you, brother.
Yeah, thanks, Nick. Thank you to all of you for joining. I'm Daniels-Haltom, NACA's National Training Representative, controller out of Las Vegas Tower. I too started my career in the Air Force, in the military, I should say, in the Air Force. Scott Air Force Base, followed by Dover Air Force Base. I did 6 years. Worked at a couple contract towers, started at Vegas TRACON, went on to Tamiami Tower in Miami, Florida. Wonderful place. If anybody wants to really work some exotic VFR traffic, go to Tamiami. Big plug. Love that place. Then Las Vegas Tower, where about within a year of being certified, I was asked to be the FAC rep. Loved that position. Moved on to some early, at that time, Article 48 positions for the Union. Recurrent training, worked on the convergent runway operations, non-intersecting convergent runways that we know about. Transitioned to being a FAC rep, did that for 4 terms at Las Vegas. Enjoyed every moment of it. It was always the primary responsibility and duty. In 2015, I had the honor of joining the what became the Slatebook contract negotiating team, a rep training instructor on several committees. I try to be wherever NACA needs me, because that's, I think, what all of us that are in leadership positions should do. I'm honored to be amongst you guys. I find you to be the driving force, I know, for your facilities and for this region, and for NACA as a whole. We're stronger together. That's what Nick and I are about, is the collective, and that's what we're going to talk to you all about. So I know you heard the recording in process. I don't want to steal the thunder from Nicole, but this is recorded, just so you all are fully aware of that. And it's just so we can provide videos for those who weren't able to attend. So back to you, Nicole.
Thank you. And steal whatever thunder you need. So thank you guys for both of that. We're going to start by giving Nick and Jamal time to discuss some of NACA members, the most important topics that we've come across so far in this campaign. So we're going to give them a little platform to do that before we get into the actual Q&A portion of this. So I'm going to give it right back to Nick and Jamal.
I appreciate it, Nicole. And it's set up for this, like this, for a reason, for everybody. This is our style. Transparent, open, everybody in a meeting. It's comfortable, it's family, and we're here to have a conversation. And that's what we have to get back to being about, is emulating and displaying from the very beginning. It's not about everybody having to figure out how to agree. It's about everybody knowing our rights and figuring out how do we move this union forward. It's how do we have the tough conversations. It's how do we do it with a focused approach. And that focus should always be geared around leadership. right? That is what is going to drive us to new eras and new heights that we haven't seen before. And leadership isn't something that is just read in a book. It's not taught overnight, and it's not something that's just self done by yourself. Leadership is an art form that is truly, reaches its peak or its pinnacle when it's done together. And that is why everything that you see is team Nick Daniels and Jamal Haltom. It's not just Nick trying to figure out how to do this because he's a great leader, or Jamal. It's about the challenging of one another. It's about having the trust in each other. Uh, Anybody can go out and try to find a way to do what they think is best for somebody else. But working with someone and saying, how do we collectively move this ball forward, is really where we see a fundamental shift that has been lost in our union that we need to bring back to it. We want to instill in everybody. And that is going to be when two people are willing to go out and set that example for leadership overall. So I'm honored and privileged to run this campaign with Jamal Haltom, because I know the two of us together can exemplify what it means to take that leadership to the level that each and every one of you deserve, and that we can spread that and empower that to other people as well. There's really just a fundamental piece that I wanted to kick off from there of explaining why we're running a team. Jamal, I don't know if you want to add anything to that before we dive into the always hot topics of pay and contract.
Sure. For me, joining this union in 2007, there are some gaps, some things that I knew immediately. I thought it would be awesome to improve, but the essence of it was belonging to something. Growing up and being athletic and playing in sports, being part of a team was always important to me, and I thought that was done because I only made it to 5'8", so I wasn't going to make it to the NBA. I'm 5'9" now. I grew a little bit, but I knew I wasn't going to make it to the NBA. So joining the military was that second opportunity to be part of a team, where everything was greater than the individual. And I left that, and I thought that was gone forever. And then having the opportunity to be part of a union has made that something that'll last for the rest of my life. And the desire to give back to those who have given to me, the people that have poured into me and helped me to become what I consider a good leader. Dean Jacopelli, Paul Rinaldi, Phil Barbarello, Steve Hansen, Tom Adcock, people that have spent so much time with me in developing the skills that I have. I don't have an option. The only option I have is to give that back to this union, and NACA gives me that opportunity to be part of a team. So Nick and I aren't proposing that we're greater than anyone. We're saying allow us to be part of the process of getting this union back to what all of us are proud of. It troubles me for those that have only been in for a short time to be rightfully saying that they don't see the strength. It's our responsibility to restore that, and we want you to be as instrumental in that as we are. So with that, Nick, back to you, and let's discuss a few hot topics and then move into the Q&A work.
Yeah, absolutely. Listen, we won't take up a ton of your time on Jamal and I platforming, but we do want to get some initial ideas and concepts out there, because we don't want to have to, run around any of the, let's say, great information poured into Jamal and I. As Jamal just talked about, returning it to all of you. You have all helped us, especially those of you in the Southwest region, have helped fund this campaign, where Jamal and I have gone and done facility visits to almost 140 facilities now. And that list will continue to grow on our weekends and our RDO, our RDOs and any annual leave that we could take to go out and make sure this message is spreading outside of just the town halls. But that's come with having true discussions, not hiding behind a camera, reading a script, and trying to figure out the best way to convince you that if you elect me, you'll get everything that you ever wanted. No, I'll just promise you the most, and that's why you'll somehow be in favor of voting for me. Well, then every candidate might as well just run out and tell you, I get you everybody a couple $1 million that you want next year, and nothing else to see here. We'll move on and we'll cash checks again later on in 3 years from now. That's a very dangerous thing, and we need our union members to be aware of that. When you have leadership, or I won't even call it leadership, but just when you have candidates that are willing to be out there who promise you anything, uh, that turns into a union of we just give you things. That's what we're about. Instead of we have a purpose as a union, we have rights as a union, and what is your purpose inside that union, and how do we collectively exercise our rights to go accomplish something together? And of course, it's going to be moving the ball forward in pay and contract. So I'm going to start off brief with contract, and then I know Jamal having his experience on the contract team is somehow the worlds will have to likely continue to overcome the worlds of anonymous social media and things like that. Is Jamal and I have a 100% desire to negotiate under fair rules that give us the ability to negotiate a new contract. We have never believed once that the slate book was the last contract that we would ever negotiate. Jamal says it the best. Any union what they saw is going to move the ball forward, and we have done that time and time again. Is we've built on each contract and moved it forward. What we have to now be cognizant of and be strategic about are a new world where executive orders can strip away our bargaining rights. And we could actually spend years, if not decades, trying to get back to where we are today if executive orders are put into place that take away those bargaining rights from us. And that just means we may have to change or maneuver the way we've done things in the past. So let's not be scared of the word extension, because we're not looking to extend the contract forever. We are looking to negotiate in 2026. We are looking, if that executive orders are put in place, that we find ways to make sure they're removed so we can negotiate fair, or we look at doing business via MOU instead of full term negotiations. So that way we don't get stripped of our rights in the meantime. So don't let the rhetoric take effect. Know that these are ways to make sure that it's not going to just be, we'll negotiate and we'll do it regardless of anything else. Leaders have to stand in front of you, educate you, and tell the truth instead of being worried about a buzzword that's going to get them not elected later on. So Jamal, I'll pass it over to you from there.
Yeah, be mindful, be inquisitive, question everything. The track records of those who promise you things, what they've delivered in the past, how they've done in the jobs that the union has already either appointed or they've been elected to do. I'm comfortable with my record versus anyone. And that's not bravado. That's just working hard, having skill level and the aptitude to move the ball forward. But most importantly, having the integrity. From a fac rep to the national training rep, sometimes the answer is, I can't do what you're asking me to do, but I'm going to work as hard as I possibly can to achieve all of our goals because our goals are shared. Pay, compensation, as my great friend Joe Ortiz said, if we can get a pay raise, I'd be knocking you all out of line to get in front. I like money. I do this job. I'm motivated the same way as everyone else. But before all is honesty and integrity. People have been in positions, and I'm not afraid to say the names. Rich Santa's been the president since 2021. He didn't have an interest in talking to people, and certainly didn't mention pay until his position became contested. Mick Devine, if you've had an opportunity to meet him, not that impressive of a person, not a person that speaks very well, and certainly not a person that put his interests first previously, because he never talked to anyone. He's been on the board since 2018. He never mentioned pay. He never said we were inadequately compensated. In fact, they extended the CBA. So for them to turn that around on us is just another opportunity for you to see just how disingenuous they are. But we don't want to make this all about them. We want to make it about you. We want to make it about the Southwest region and our union as a whole. But we did want to make sure that anyone that's viewing this, no matter where you are, understand we're not ducking the hard work. The hard work and increasing the compensation for air traffic controllers and all the people that we represent, flight service, Region X, all other bargaining employees, is a task that anyone that signs up to do these jobs should be up to, and we're most certainly up to that. We look forward to the opportunity.
Absolutely. And let's again, not a comprehensive list, because if Jamal and I waved a wand tomorrow, that's what we're talking about. That's what we don't want candidates to fool you with in this election. Every one of these things has to be negotiated, and what you need are leaders who have the strategy, who have the background, and who have the foresight, and ultimately the intestinal fortitude to stand and say, "This is the path, based on all of your feedback. This is how we're going to move forward together." And some of these ideas fall right in line with probably what maybe you've been thinking. They are different areas that you expressed interest in. Again, it's not going to be just because Jamal and I say it on here, we get it, but we want you to know that these are areas that we have concern in too. And one, as Jamal said, is the pay and the compensation overall. But some things that we specifically want to engage on is, number one, is the AG pay structure. That AG pay structure, I won't go into great detail. You can see our other videos. You can visit teamndjh.com or any of our social media. We recently talked about the antiquated system of AG pay and the agency being able to control when a person gets to a facility, if they start training right away, they don't, what positions they start them on. These persons that we represent are going to achieve D1, and in most rare, very few rare cases where they don't, it is not like it is some great leap to begin paying people appropriately when they come out of the academy, instead of waiting till they achieve a certification to get their first pay raise. With the economic times and how they've changed, all of these things are necessitating levels of changes, and that's just one part. We obviously want to start looking at premiums as well, and increasing the pay bands. I don't want it to get lost. I'll say it several times. The pay bands are not a subset to this. These are different ideas in all of them. The pay bands themselves and how we move through those pay bands absolutely need to be reviewed by a contract team. We want to move those forward. We want to increase that compensation, and I'm sure it will be a combination of strategies that move us there. But when you talk about premiums, specifically, bringing in and introducing Saturday pay. We now live in a post-COVID world where we've seen what weekends, more time at home, competing against to retain and recruit people, where they're sitting at home on a computer 5 days a week instead of driving to a facility, which costs more overall. Their dollar stretches further than ours do now. So what we need to start evolving out of the premiums into places like that. The other areas that we wanted to look at, overtime pay, that's a huge one that many members have discussed, and looking at ideas around tiered overtime. We've heard ideas around it eventually being added into their base pay when exceeding so much. Again, don't know exactly what that looks like, but we're not in any way, trying to find out ways to not engage in that, because overtime clearly is the thing holding the system together right now because of all of you. We have become we are at facilities. We used to say that even in 5 days a week that we're at work more than we're with our families. Now, a lot of you are at work 6 days a week, if not 10 hours a day at times. It's the evolution of overtime. If we're going to be at work that much, we have to look at what that's doing to us. It takes away again from our dollar stretching further. Now you got to hire childcare at off times. You got to have people that come over and assist with cleaning a house or mowing a lawn, because you're not even present or there or able to do it. So what does the system look like, where if after so many hours you start earning double pay, and then after another bank of hours you earn 2.5 times pay? At some point, we're going to have to engage the agency and the burden and toll that these, or us holding the system together is taking on us. And that is something that we'd be interested in. Well, and the other last one is looking at, and I know it's near and dear, and Jamal has done a tremendous amount of work on this, is moving us forward in training, and not just doing and being compensated during times of live traffic. It's been finding ways to introduce strategies through the National Training Initiative and other maneuvers of getting our people compensated when they go in to do simulator training, when they're looking at doing training forms, when we're looking at doing skill improvement training or skill development training. All these things are lending our expertise and our credibility to help improve the system. You should be compensated for it. So, Jamal, I know that was a long list. Again, not a list of just we wave a magic wand and everybody gets it. But these are some of the most important things that our members have been talking about.
Yeah, only thing I'll add to it is that anytime we and I've we have candidates for president, several. We know at least of three. We have candidates for executive vice president, myself, Mike Redmond, I think is his name, and Mick Devine. I've negotiated pay on behalf of the air traffic controllers and the TMCs and the flight service specialists, NOTAMs reps. And I know what we really leaned into is the important job that we all do, the professionalism that we display, our impact to the GDP. We weren't obnoxious, though. We didn't have to beat our chest every day and print silly T-shirts. Washington, D.C. is a small place. The relationships that you build, the way that you treat people has an impact on the people that you represent. When you present yourself in an unprofessional manner, it has a lasting impact. They're witness to what's going on with our election. They're seeing the candidates. We hope that you all spread the word and select candidates that present themselves in a manner that can actually get it done and not be a hindrance to what we all deserve. So be mindful of that. And while we could talk about pay forever, we're well into this, and we'd really like to have an opportunity to talk to you all about the things that interest you and take your questions.
Excellent. Nick and Jamal, thank you both for that. So we're going to move into question and answers now. A few housekeeping items that I do want to go over before we get into it. First, nothing is off limits in this conversation. We always talk about, being a NACA family, and family, sometimes we have to have hard conversations. So anything, any topic, anything you guys want to talk about, please feel free to ask Nick and Jamal. Second, nothing is going to be moderated here. There's no questions being asked behind the scenes. Please don't direct message, any of us about your questions, because we want to make sure that they get answered. So there's two ways we can do this. You can either put your question in the chat, and Brittany is going to make sure that, we don't get anything lost in there to make sure that we get to everybody's question. Or you can raise your hand. You can use the raise the hand feature down at the bottom of your screen. And then I'll be able to unmute you, and you can ask your question that way. If you feel comfortable enough, you can turn on your camera, so we can actually see who we're talking to. If not a big deal. Just let us know if your name's not in your Zoom profile here. Just let us know your name and what facility you're from, if you don't mind. Just be mindful, if you do, or once I do unmute you, if you go back and mute yourself, you're not going to be able to unmute again. So either raise your hand again or just stay unmuted, just to make sure Nick and Jamal answer your questions if you don't have any follow-ups after that. But if you do, we'll work through it. Just put your hand back up. And I think we're going to go from there. Also, if you don't necessarily have any questions, I do want to encourage everybody, if you have ideas or, any kind of thoughts or anything that you just want to say, that's just as important as making sure that we're answering people's questions. So, Nick and Jamal are here to answer questions, but they're also here to learn from you. This is where the ideas come from. So feel free to share anything that you want as we work through this. So I'm going to stop now. If I don't see any questions in the chat yet, but if you guys want to get started, you can start putting anything there, raise your hand, and we'll go from there.
I would add that yesterday we were 5 for 5 with cameras, and we had great questions. And don't try to lob us softballs. Ask us the tough questions. Make sure that any blind spots that we have that you see from being in the field every day, you address. There's nothing that we're afraid of, and the only thing that can happen is growth. So be part of the process, please.
Yeah, I know the Southwest region isn't scared to ask questions. And I gotta say real quick, it's so great seeing so many of you on here to support and be a part of this very important conversation. But thank you, Southwest region, for turning out as you always do. I'm damn proud of you.
All right, looks like we got our first one in the chat from Sherry Reeves. She asks, what are your plans to remedy the shortfalls on the count program for facilities that work more traffic than they're being paid for? Austin is growing at an unprecedented rate, and we are busier than every other level 10 except for Tampa. We just don't have the complexity.
I'll dive in first. One of the things that Jamal and I have seen in places we go, and I'll tackle the complexity part, Jamal. If you want to tackle just kind of the background of how negotiating that and where we want to go with our traffic counting program, because ultimately we have been held as a victim almost to this traffic counting program. And so I'm not sure. I'm not saying that's because somebody's out there not working hard on the NACA side to try to bring this forward. But when you speak to complexity itself, it's clear and it's evident that it's antiquated. There were supposed to be 13 improvements that were brought in when Abacus actually was supposed to come to life with fruition. That was a part of the slate book and something that was negotiated in. Many of those were referred terminal. I mean, going around and seeing the facilities that we have and visiting as many, you could tell the traffic complexity index is skewed heavy en route. However, the en route program hasn't had a proper traffic counting program for going on 18 years as well. All of these things that we say complexity and traffic volume drive our wages, and we haven't been able to hold the agency accountable to actually getting to a point of fixing it. We have to immediately go in and say we are going to establish a temporary procedure until we have a permanent fix. That is something that is extremely important to Jamal and I to immediately engage on. Pay, contracts, employee movement, but specifically getting our facilities paid properly is number one. And then number two behind that is reevaluating those complexities as well. You have some of the busiest facilities in the country, a level 5 David Wayne Hooks that is out there, or Tulsa Riverside. It's out there absolutely crushing it day in and day out, but they're not getting any kind of a complexity factor working at Delta Airspace. And then we have our very large and busy TRACONs, where they're working so many satellite airports, crossing finals, and now in a world of GPS and instrument approaches that add a level of complexity and significant complexity to the amount of satellite traffic you're working versus just the one that you're at now. So every one of those things we absolutely want to go in, we want to address, we want to make sure everybody's properly compensated for.
Yeah, but thanks for the question, Sherry. I mean, so many things need to be reevaluated, and it takes people to understand it. You have to have evaluated it to reevaluate it, right? In 2016, we signed the slate book, and as Nick said, we have 13 to 16 potential modifiers to the traffic count index that would be added. Never did we imagine that the Abacus would still be held up to this point, right? But who's been in charge of Abacus over that time? Since 2019, Rich Santa, and then he passed it off to Mick Devine when he became the president. Frankly, they don't know how to move the ball. They've never closed on any projects that they work in, and Abacus is no different. So you compared yourself to Tampa, and without even having to take a deep dive, I think Tampa's a Bravo airspace, and I would imagine that Austin is a Charlie or Tursa. If you were properly captured as a Bravo, you'd have a 25% multiplier as opposed to a 10%. And then our Delta airspaces that have no multiplier, if they had a 5 or 7, or if 10 is more appropriate, they would be played more properly. So while we're waiting on this traffic counting system, why don't we address the things that have changed? A Class Delta airspace is not what it used to be, where there were just a few airplanes. A Class Delta airspace needs more than just two-way communication to come on in. We need closely spaced parallels to be accounted for in our Delta airspaces. Having North Las Vegas very close to Las Vegas and seeing that the rules are such that traffic calls aren't necessitated. Well, if we were to identify the Delta for what it really is right now, probably those traffic calls could be implemented and a separation standard included, which would increase our pay. And then again, I never want to ignore the question that was asked. Identifying Austin for what it should be, which is a Bravo airspace, would be go a great way toward getting you compensated properly. And what we don't do is promise anything other than hard work, but you got to identify the issues first. They have that right before them, and they never raised it. So I think that helps you to understand the differences.
All right. Sherry, we'll wait, see if you have any follow-ups from that, and make sure that your question was fully answered and you don't have any more coming from that. Again, you can raise your hand or you can just type something else in the chat. I'm going to move on to RVG. Said, on the topic of premiums, you commented that you're looking into addressing them. When? Why isn't this being addressed already? You're in national leadership, in a national leadership position now. So why aren't you pushing for that while we have a union-friendly administration?
So obviously starting that, I guess I'm the one probably being referred to in a national leadership position, even though Jamal is as well as our national training rep, but I know I'm elected onto the national executive board currently. One of the main tenets of that is, Jamal said it earlier in the opening, our current president, until challenged, didn't decide to go back and negotiate, didn't engage the agency until recently, at which the agency recently said, we'll negotiate in 2026. They have a desire and they have things that they want to negotiate as well. So that is what is being teed up as the time that we'll be able to open and negotiate a contract. You're absolutely right. We should have, continue to find ways to push up until this point. We should be finding any avenue we can to negotiate via the term negotiation or an MOU. And that would be our goal too, is going in, is not waiting, is finding what are the right moments and what gives us the most leverage. Obviously, a term negotiation gives us the most leverage to look at compensation in its totality, and premiums, differentials. However, if we're going to have to take an MOU approach, because there's executive orders in effect, maybe it's one large MOU, maybe it's multiple MOUs, all covering those things. But we know the given opportunity is 2026 that we do not want to miss, and as long as there are not executive orders overriding that, and then we'll have to address our strategy from there. So that's when we plan on doing it and finding every way, shape, and form along the way to address all of the things that we stated originally.
Yeah, RVG, I think, again, another wonderful question, but one that takes some clarity and understanding. So we throw around a few terms, right? National leader. While Nick is on the national executive board, he is a regional vice president. The direction for the national union is set by the president of the union. So when you ask your question, why hasn't it been addressed in a labor-friendly administration? It's because the ball's been dropped. There's been a failure to address those things. There's been a failure to establish that relationship. There's been a failure to be a collaborative partner and show that administration that you have their back as much as they have your back. We've seen other people in industry move forward and we've been stagnant. Yet this person is promising you that if you just give them more time, they'll finally do the job that they could do right now. So answering your question very succinctly is it hasn't been addressed because we have poor national leadership from the position of president.
All right, thank you both for that. We'll wait. RVG, I'm not sure if you have a response to that. Also not seeing any hands, but we'll give some people some time. I don't know, maybe you guys want to address one of the questions that we got last night about the fatigue MOU.
Travis has his hand up.
Now we got Travis. We'll go to you. Oh, hold on, Travis, let me unmute you.
All right, I'm unmuted. Let me see if I can get my camera on. I'm sitting in the parking lot. Nope, it's not gonna let me. Okay, question for Nick and Jamal both. If you're elected and your opponent, if you end up winning the presidency and let's say that Mick ends up winning as your vice president, how will you work with him? And same but opposite for Jamal, obviously, if Rich were to be elected as a president, being the EVP, how would you guys work through that relationship?
Travis, thanks for being here, brother. And, this is one of those realities of something that has to be talked about, but I don't even want to think about it, to be honest. I do not even want to go down a road where we do not educate this membership enough to know that the most qualified, the most, the person that will move the ball forward for this union in that role of executive vice president is Daniels-Haltom. He defeats and stands up in every way to Mick Devine in the ability to negotiate, and the ability to articulate our positions, and the ability to lead, and the ability to just move our membership into understanding the power of collective thinking. So, if he was elected, obviously he discharges his duties. I had discharged my duties. This union has a way to move forward. It's not about having to like one another, right? It's about having to execute on behalf of this union. But if you want execution for this union that's going to be truly beneficial to each and every one of you, I say make sure you elect the right people. And that is a team that's committed to holding each other accountable, committed to working together. And Daniels-Haltom serves, and he is the one that has inspired me to be in these roles to run today. I cannot think of a better person to lead this union. And yes, if I have the chance to, work with Jamal for these 3 years, I think every single union member would see the benefit that if he wouldn't been elected, or somehow he was, not given this opportunity to shine, to go out and display what we can be and where we're going, I think would be a disservice to all of our members overall.
Yeah, Travis, pardon, I echo a lot of what Nick says. Is the reason we decided to be a team. And look, we know they're separate positions, but we want to be able to, no matter where I'm at or where Nick is at, know that we're espousing the same union views, and that there's no light between us. That if Nick were to take vacation and take his daughter overseas for a week, that the ball doesn't drop and the message doesn't change. There's no decrease in our respect to and from the agency and industry partners. As it relates to me being able to work with Rich, I would say the same. I hope that these people, that all of you see the virtues that Nick displays and that you select him. But ultimately, the union makes a determination. And like I've always done, I'm going to do the job for the union. I'm going to do my best to ensure that union members are heard, union members are well represented, and I would never turn my back on that role. So I would work as hard as I have as the national training rep. I currently work with Rich, and despite what I think his shortcomings are, I'm respectful. I respect the union first and foremost, and I have nothing but great intentions for all of you.
And I want to close up with making sure that I address this as well. I've seen Jamal day in, day out over the last, 7 years lead in some way, shape, or form in this union. I know he's been doing it for a very long time. I've had the chance to see Mick on display as well. And Mick could go out and promise anything he wants. If elected the president of this union, I do not find any leadership qualities in Mick Devine that would lead us into a negotiation. That I would see him somehow being on a contract team for us. And that's just me telling you the absolute truth. You can make a video about it all day, but it's the ability to go in and actually produce for this union. And I haven't seen that when it's come to NSW. I haven't seen that when it's come to NVT. I haven't seen that when it's come to Nest and all of those things in the last 2.5 years that I've been on this board. Mick Devine has been on. So it's would definitely set us backwards.
All right.
Thanks, guys.
You good? Okay.
Yep.
So Bo and Taylor, I see your hands up, but before y'all did that, we had 2 questions in the chat that I want to get to really quick. So please keep your hands up. So we had someone, iPhone pool. Why should we remain in the union up until this point? In the last 10 years, traffic has grown significantly. Pay has been dropped out of the top 15 government jobs for the first time. Training has become about quantity and not quality. Now hearing that NACA was blindsided by the fatigue order, which leads us to believe we are walked on again.
Yeah, so there's a lot in that question. a lot that is in the control of those in leadership, right? So that's why we're asking you to elect new leadership. Nick, I'm comfortable speaking with him. Likes being the Southwest Regional Vice President. I like being the National Training Rep, but because those things have slipped, because our stature has slipped, because we were imposed on, and we've been trying to tell you, we saw this happen with our BWS negotiations, where the agency was more aggressive. We've seen these things coming, and that's part of the reason we put our hand up to say, let's make a change. This is a union that we've been part of, me since 2007, Nick since 2003. We've seen the strength, the height of it. We also did see us during an all-time low in traffic keep jobs. We've seen us at an all-time low in traffic protect the health and safety of our membership through union negotiations, through collaboration with the agency. We've seen an expansion of our rights into training. And as it relates to quantity over quality, another thing where we've seen regions, regional leadership, including the national president, intentionally bastardize the National Training Initiative and not support it, so as to make myself and Nick look bad when the actual persons that are affected by it are the trainees in the field. We won't do that. There's never a time when an initiative that benefits the bargaining unit employees would I ever try to thwart that or make it weak. We're about strength. We're about leaning into this union. So I would say the reason you should stay in this union is because the future's bright, because we both know the past and see the future. We're willing to work hard on behalf of all of you. So the thought of getting out of it, I would ask, if you're going to get out of the FAA altogether, because the failures long term have been the FAA. In the short term, if you've been in only in the short term, you have seen some NACA failures. We plan to clean those up.
Okay. Nick, did you have any follow-up there? Or are you good?
When a person crushes an answer, you let the answer stand.
All right, perfect. Scott, hold on one second. I'm going to go to Bo. Bo, I'm going to unmute you now. You should be good to go.
I got no shame in my hat game, so I appreciate it, brothers. One of the things that we noticed here at Abilene is every BUE, every employee is 40 and under. The future, I want you guys to speak on the future in NAPCO, where we're going. Everybody's concerned about how outdated they think the slate book is and pay. I just want to know, as a group, as a NATCA family, where everybody sees us going, what changes to benefits, things like that. All this talk of our schedule changing to 10 and 12, from our perspective, it takes away from opportunity to be with our kids and our families. I want you guys to talk on, where we're going as a NATCA family. Like, what are we doing? Where are we going?
I appreciate the question, Bo, and the amazing hat. First of all, so it's always great seeing you, brother. Let's start with, I think, something that has really helped, I guess, develop some of that narrative, which is a lack of education and a lack of engaged leaders that have helped derive and allow this narrative to derive out there. Almost an anti-union, what have you done for me lately type of style, because our national leadership, I like to applaud the Southwest region. Obviously, we have room for growth and improvement here. But one of the things that we have driven the most is ensuring that our FAC reps can pass and relay the message to the membership, so that way it doesn't permeate that somehow this union is about giving you things. Like, I got $100 today, so I guess next week I get $200. Well, if that's what our union becomes, we really don't have a union. We just have a foundation that we hope eventually gives back to us. And we don't really know what goes on in the meantime. It's about actually getting back to the fundamental grassroots of understanding what unionism is, what activism is, and how we serve a purpose inside that union, and that we have a goal and a journey that we're going on. That's where that doesn't fix it, pay. That doesn't put us at the negotiating table, but understanding the rights and where these things derive from and why it's so important to protect them. That's what lets these narratives creep in, where it's, oh, well, we could go negotiate against executive orders and we'll just see if our rights get stripped away from us or not. Well, what happens when we do? And I'll give you the prime example is the fatigue thing that you just brought up. We had executive orders today that stripped away our right to be able to negotiate basic watch schedules and annual leave, which they would under the Trump executive orders. That imposition of the mandatory fatigue policy would already be going into effect, or you'd get a 30-day notice of change, and that would be happening now. And that's why it's so important to protect our rights from the very beginning, because the agency would be dictating, mandating our schedules. So that's just one small component of it, Bo, is obviously, holding our rights and protecting them, but that doesn't mean not advancing them either. So we don't want those two things confused in there, in pay, benefits, or anything that you spoke to. So that's part of the key change that you would see with us is engaged leadership in the field, addressing these and breathing that pro-union and that life of why we exist, why we have these rights, and why we move them forward.
All right. Go to Scott Martina or Bo if there's anything else you need to follow up with. Jen, you could just put your hand back up. Scott says, have you given any consideration to a plan for approaching Congress for legislation that would allow for a true pay raise to be negotiated? With our level 12 cap already being at the top of Executive Schedule 2, any real raise would just compress the bands, not raise everyone equally. What would your strategy be?
So we are bumped up against the federal pay cap, but to think that any real significant raise only comes with raising the federal pay cap is not necessarily the case. It might mean looking at a larger percentage at our lower level facilities and adjusting that as we go up. Nothing's off the table, but as far as I'm glad he mentioned legislation. I no shame in admitting it. I saw a mixed video today, and it talks about the Green Book, and erroneously, because the Green Book, the raises associated with the Green Book greatly come from legislation. And then how do we move into or away from the GS scale into this new AT band was MOUs associated with that legislation. So yeah, legislation is part of it. Telling our story, ingratiating ourselves to the public so that they say wide and loud that air traffic controllers need to be properly compensated. Those are all prongs of moving the ball. The negotiations table is a place that you move it as well, but it's not the only place. So I think it's easy for those who have never sat at a negotiation table to promise you that they'll move mountains when they get there. The truth of the matter is it's a grind. The agency is going to present a pay cut, and they're going to have what they believe is compelling information as such. We have to use all prongs, legislative, our engagement and outreach to the public, and our labor relations in order to move pay, and within the margins and outside of the margins. So there may be a time where the federal pay cap has to be lifted in order for us to be addressed. But what we certainly aren't going to do is tell you that's an easy lift. That would be quite a considerable lift. But with this union collectively moving forward, nothing's impossible. But again, want to be very clear that we're not sitting here promising anything like that.
Yeah, I think the other part of that strategy is really diving into, as Jamal was saying, is we have to set the stage not just with Congress, but with the American public, right? And get back out to saying, this is how we move the commerce and the GDP, the gross domestic product, for the entire nation. And when Jamal's saying, make sure that we have a level of influence there, is educate the public who will eventually either look at our paychecks and determine, man, those people get paid way too much. I don't want to have to give over more of my taxes to them, or wow, I can't believe the work that they're doing. And that comes through us being our own media, promoting and staying on the offense instead of waiting to play a defense in the media later on when we have incidents going on. Is we should be up there mentioned with, if we're successful, we would be in the conversations of firefighters, first responders, police officers, your air traffic controllers, all core components of things that run this nation. And when you have that, and you have that power of the public behind you, it is much easier to move that legislation as well. So it's not just going and marching up to Capitol Hill. It's going to be using strategies to set up with the public. So when it's called upon in time, as Jamal said, it'll be about recruitment of the air traffic controllers, about the retention of air traffic controllers. And that was one other thing that we wanted to hit on as well, is you all are in the facilities. We're facing the lowest staffing we've ever seen. And many of you may not get to move. We want to change that. We want to make adjustments to employee movement. But we also want to look at retention bonuses inside a facility. If you spent 5 years as CPC at a facility, there is, we would like to negotiate a level of compensation that comes with it. Your 10-year CPC continuously at a facility, there's a level of compensation that comes with it. All these things help, as you said, either move us further close. If we even start compressing the cap, is make a compelling reason that we should be above that cap and eventually move to Series 1 employees, while the rest of the aviation industry is growing as well, which benefits us, and we capitalize on that.
Nick, thank you for that. Taylor, 1 second, because we just got a question in the chat that came from Dylan Burgess, and it kind of hit on what Nick was just saying. Dylan said, at LCH, we have not been eligible facility for inset panels since the first half of 2019, with our last inset departure in April of 2020. How do we fix the situation of being held hostage at a facility that has one employee from the local area and where everyone wants to leave and it's an instant $15K pay raise to jump ship and accept a DoD controller position? I think that feeds right into what you were just talking about.
Absolutely. And Dylan, thank you for bringing that up. It's one of these components of, we'll just call it what it is. It's been the fit the square peg in the round hole approach in a critically staffed system. That it doesn't mean Nicole's on the NSW team. Hats off to our NSW team, that's out there, truly finding ways to, move people around the system. She's a regional representative in it, and in no way is this they haven't done their job. They're working with the circumstances given to them, but we do need to reevaluate how, one, the distribution of academy resources is put out to the field. You all should know where people are going. You all should see the distribution and what it looks like. Shreveport is in the exact same scenario. They hadn't had an academy grad in 2 years. And that comes from talking and finding out why that's occurring, where it's going, and how we can, if the, we're trying to figure out how, then to spread the peanut butter, where do we actually need to focus it and where does it need to go? The other parts of employee movement that we really want to address is you have a Lake Charles that's an up down that gets one body, just like we'll pick let's say a level 5 VFR tower that has 4-month training time. That no one should be balking at saying how do we take away from that level 5 VFR tower. But for that facility to get one body and Lake Charles to only get one body does not seem appropriate to us. It's almost a 2-year training cycle at Lake Charles. They should be getting 3 to 4 bodies, while the person at the level 5 VFR tower gets one. So that way, over the same course of time, they turn out 4 bodies. And that's just having new, fresh ideas to the approach of, where we are now, how we move it forward. And that's just one small component of, how we start getting these facilities unstuck. And the other one is really focusing on our level 8s and 9s and increasing the number of vacancies, inside of them. There's a concept that Jamal and I'd like to introduce called retention and throughput of facilities instead of more of the antiquated percentage game that's being played right now. When you get in facilities of 22 and below, and you're talking about 85% is the new 100% to release, you're actually just putting facilities in 6-day work weeks a lot of times. It's increased the number of vacancies, so that way it's not just 4 through 7s to 11s and 12s, and that way we can bring more people to facilitate the moving of people through the system and our 8s and 9s as well. And I think that will help unclog the system.
Well, there's other things also. Does it have to be an RVP that's the lead of the NSEP? Currently, it is. It's Mick. It's Brian. Brian Schallenberger, for those that don't know, the Eastern Region RVP. Mick Devine, the New England Region RVP, and they're not doing great. They're consistently bested by the agency. That there's been moves that were thwarted. We know about the 13 people that had their NSEP process messed up. when the agency knows that they have a serious-minded person across the table from them, they work harder. I know that because they work harder when they work with me. Unclogging those facilities is something that we have to do, tying all of our employee movement, academy, nest, incept, hardships, tying all of these things together to get people where they want to be is something that has to happen. Getting staffing numbers up, using the NTI properly to get people moving through training, using simulation and accounting for that and as part of the NTI. Look, the reason we're so adamant about the NTI is because employee pay is associated with it as well as employee movement. Otherwise, we'd have stayed out of it. The agency only wanted to mandate that for level 10 through 12. We saw the need for it in our 4 through 12s. We saw the need at those lower level facilities so that you could get training done. We know you're not where you want to be. We want to get you there, but we don't want it to be farcical. We want it to be true and legitimate, and you have an actual opportunity to move around. We can do it. This is why we need change. Again, I reiterate, we like our current positions. We would have stayed in them if things were going well. Give us an opportunity and see, can we get these things unstuck?
Thank you both. Taylor Anderson, I saw that you put your hand down. I'm going to find you and I'm going to ask you to unmute so you can have your question, because it was answered, just let us know.
Yeah, I really just wanted to hit on the incept as well. Because I mean, for us here in Roswell, we have lost 5 bodies in the last 2 years, I think, going on 3, straight to management, solely because of the incept process currently. And I know, as speaking to the members in the building, that we are looking at within the next year, probably looking at losing another 3. And I know that's not, localized just to Roswell. I know that there are a bunch of other facilities as well that are dealing with this same issue with people jumping ship to management. So our union losing bargaining unit members and controllers that wouldn't leave the union solely because of the incept process. So that was kind of going to be my question is like, are there plans? What are we looking at here coming down the road when you guys are in these positions? What can we kind of expect is going to be coming down the pipe?
Yeah,
Taylor,
I'll speak directly to the deviation process and all that, but Taylor, a little bit of the answer that I just gave. Being more efficient in our training, being more direct in how we staff facilities will lead to people seeing the light at the end of the tunnel, and then they won't jump to management. But also, it's having a union that people want to be a part of. That means providing the union reps, such as yourself, with the ammunition to tell them that there is light at the end of the tunnel, and it's not a train coming the opposite direction. It's leading you out. It's leading you to prosperity. It's leading you to where you want to be, but also at the same time being honest about the struggles that we have to go through, that we're here together and united, we'll get to where we want to go. We've forgotten that. We've forgotten being a union that provides message. We're told that we're folksy or that we just have inspirational messages, but those inspirational messages of empowering and inspiring are true. Stay here. Stay in the union. You join these ranks to be an air traffic controller, be an air traffic controller. Don't run at this as soon as it gets tough, because if you have the right leaders, the tough times won't last long. So, Nick, if you could expound a little bit on that other process, I think we covered that.
absolutely. One, Taylor, is when I first came onto this National Executive Board 2.5 years ago, one of the first things that John Brancher and I asked for is the information about deviations, because we knew they were crushing the Southwest region, specifically Albuquerque Center. It's the #1 most deviated facility in the entire country. Our union, until recently, thanks to the help of Travis Schumberger and others for helping correlate and put together all the data, is we now have an entire list of the entire history of deviations for the union. And this has helped us grow leaps and bounds in making sure it's not a once a month fight. It's a fight for the entire picture. While there'll be selections for management, and we'll never stave them all off, what we can do is we can actually make articulate, or we can make a very data-driven argument to say, okay, this is what has happened, and this is what we are attempting and trying to do as well. so that there is a level of a balanced approach to it instead of this mindset that there can only go to management. So information that each and every one of our reps should have, our RVPs and ARVPs should have, and now we've led the charge in doing that from the Southwest region. That's what we'll bring to the table. We'll bring to the table the tools and resources that we need instead of, well, I hope go get them, because that's kind of what it felt like going into that position. So that's just the other component of it. But we absolutely need to ensure that deviations do not overcome just the amount of inset moves as well, and that these things work in tandem instead of who can pull from the list the fastest and who can go out there and really just pillage the few controllers that are there. We're fighting it off daily, and you can expect us to continue to press on that as well and win in these positions.
Last thing real quick on that, just to give a little more data. Nate Pear, Travis Schlumpberger, a bunch of people worked together, Joel Ortiz, Nick Daniels, to really put together a comprehensive review. And deviations went from, I think, a height of like 168 in a cycle just within 2 years to listening to Andrew at our last RT1 say that there's less than 10 deviations in the last round. So we are making progress, and that's because of people like you raising your hand, lending your expertise, and saying there's a problem here, including Nate Pear, who I actually hate to give any credit to because he's Nate Pear. But no, it went well, and that's what happens when the union leans in together and works together toward a common goal.
Taylor, are you good with that?
Yeah, sounds great. Thanks, guys.
All right, I'm going to go over to Zab Nat Cafe. I'm going to unmute you because I saw that you raised your hand and put a question in the chat. So we'll go to you.
Yes, ma'am. I was just curious about what the plan is to get places like Albuquerque Center and places nobody cares about CIP. We're watching 20% raises for management, 20% CIP for N90, and we get left behind. So I'm due back. They're paging me. I'll take your question offline. Thanks.
What was it, gentlemen?
That's
Zach, Jamal.
What's up, Zach?
Hey, Nick. Yeah, I was just wondering about the plan to get places like Albuquerque Center, places that are left behind CIP.
Well, do you want to start there, or do you want me to?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I honestly imagine CIP a whole lot different than it currently exists. And just, when we talk about our pay, and a lot of what is in our pay and why it's hard to move is the federal pay cap. But just having a general controller incentive pay, right? All of us need to be incentivized to do this very difficult and important job to both the national airspace system from a safety perspective and a commerce perspective. What about just having an incentive associated with being air traffic controllers? And does it have to be percentage? I don't know. Can it be relative to where you are? Probably. But having a general incentive might be better than select facilities getting CIP. CIP had a start. It had a purpose. And anyone who wants to know the history, I'll be very brief. It started with just a few facilities. The pool of money was going to leave. We were able to keep it. At the slate book negotiations, again, the agency wanted to take it away. We said, let's keep the pool of money. It's harder to expand that particular pool of money, but let's look at it differently. We're seeing, as you mentioned, Zach, they sure were able to come up with money when, again, imposed on at New York TRACON, right? So let's look at it from that perspective rather than taking it from a place now and giving it to another place. That divides the union. Let's look at saying, while it won't necessarily attach to our high three, just having a controller incentive pay across the board. I think there's room for that to be a real opportunity for us.
Okay, so he did have to go, so I'm gonna actually, Zach, let me see. Are
Nicole, there's one other. I think he ran. I got a text.
I'm here. Hey.
Oh, you are? Okay.
Yeah, buddy. We'll talk to you guys later. They're paging me back, guys. I got to go.
No worries. I just one thing for the group that I'll say on it is I think when we look at any initiatives, now are moving forward, one of the things that we fundamentally need to look at as well is how we approach facility specific initiatives. And that should come with a level of standard, right? When we have things like a priority release MOU, when we have things like CIP, I think one of the most frustrating things that we hear from controllers is, why them and not me? Well, when we have a standard and we say anybody below this, percentage, anybody not meeting this standard, this applies to you. Where facilities can rotate and flow into those standards, I think that goes everything from, as Jamal said, new ideas around, introducing a controller pay to, future endeavors and the current ones that we have. We need to look about getting away from just facility centric ones and really baselining our information so we can make it make sense for everybody.
Okay. Go on to the next question in the chat. KG wrote, in respect to pay, has there been any thought or action towards tiered overtime pay? Is that something that you would support? It seems it would provide extra incentive for the FAA to expedite staffing across the NAS. I know we talked a little bit on that earlier. They may not have been on.
Yeah, we kicked off the beginning of this talking about several different ideas of not, saying free pizza for everybody, because we're not going to be those candidates. But that is absolutely something that we are, interested in engaging the agency about. We know that there could be some back and forth with the negotiation there when we talk about overtime, but tiered overtime, to just quickly recap it from what I said earlier, is being at work as much as many of you are today actually starts coming at a higher cost to you. The single mother or single father that's out there trying to figure out how to pay for childcare on a night and a weekend or on a Sunday or a holiday. So you could go in on this overtime shift and be there 60 hours a week actually starts affecting you and costing you more money. You go in and only make an extra $100 for 8 to 10 hours of work, because now you got to have people helping clean your house. You got to have people picking up your kids. You got to have people mowing lawns, and those things should be properly compensated for. So we're absolutely up for the idea. We would engage the agency about negotiating a tiered overtime structure or what that would look like.
It's good. It's going to roll right into the next question from RVG. Within my facility, the idea has been thrown around that we should have an increase in sick leave accrual or a separate category for fatigue leave that we accrue per pay period. The idea makes sense to me considering the burnout we face from 6-day work weeks. Is that even a possibility?
Well, education, right? We first of all because we have a union, all things are negotiable, right? But education is, Article 45 exists, which says, if you're incapacitated for duties, but you can do other duties, then other duties should be made available so that they exist. We have a corresponding MOU as the agency changed the district alignments that expands that outside of just your facility and local area, but into your district. As it relates to fatigue leave, we do have a contract article that already addresses that. Can it be expounded? I'm sure it can, but the truth of the matter is we need to get out of the world of being fatigued by being staffed properly. And being staffed properly means that you have an industry that's aligned behind you, and not just aligned behind you for their interests, but truly for yours. And the way you get them there is by having credible NACA leadership. Having people that people want to work with, not that people want to ignore. Not having a president that doesn't meet his obligations and duties or hides from an administrator and we get imposed on. So having coherent leadership that recognizes the problems hopefully gets us back to where it was when I first came in the agency. When I first came in the agency, a missed overtime felt like a missed opportunity to make a little bit of money. Now missed overtime feels like a blessing. We don't want our people working themselves to death. We want our people working the hours that they're assigned and being able to live their lives. So while all those things should and will be on the table, the most important thing is to get you out of being fatigued by this job, to get you out of being told no when you are legitimately sick and want other duties, and to being staffed properly.
Yeah, the only other tentacle that I'll add on there is something that we absolutely have to engage in and find our way, just like we found our way in the door when it comes to employee movement and placement. And that was through an NSW process, one that we believe needs to evolve and change. But that got us our union somewhere that we had to collaborate to get into. We didn't have a lawful right to go in and negotiate it, but the same thing it goes on with medical right now. We are held at an extremely high medical standard. We do need to start and continue to aggressively pursue, health and wellness, especially our mental health. And that is going to be a component of sick leave. It's going to be a component of taking some of this power that is all completely lies with aviation medical and saying there has to be a level of understanding this system doesn't move without us, and we're not just somebody to put on a shelf. We're not just somebody that's a number, and that our facility doesn't suffer when there's only 10 of us in it and I'm out because I happened to crash my bike and now you need 42 pages of documents to get me back to it. So, I think sick leave is a part of it, especially when it comes to, the medications and the downtimes that we have. We do need to capitalize on seeing, can we increase and can we change that? But also, what is our influence with the medical, aviation medical, and getting us actually back to work when we should be there anyways.
Good. The next question, Ryan Wertzer, comes from the chat. What are some things that you would implement or change in the next contract other than strictly pay?
Pay's always the favorite one, but I think, it becomes not just, that's where you really start capitalizing on, the chess pieces that have been set up in the past. And, I see some of those as just, if I was taking a swipe at a few of them, so you start looking at Article 19. We have a ever-changing society where right now, Article 19 only looks at from your home to your workplace. In protecting for hazardous and geological weather conditions. We have controllers right now that, you can live a state or multiple states away and still get to work or still commute, or you may be on a vacation or something like that. To say that somehow it's only those times that we're going to be excused, I would say that's just one small thing, is looking at, expanding where that started. We did that. Jamal and I actually did that directly with the provisions for when you are sick or medically incapacitated, about expanding the commuting area into the entire district. That was something that Jamal and I were brought in on a negotiation with Neon Capelli and a few others when the service areas try to change. So we're always out there looking for those opportunities. That's just one small one. I figured I'd throw it to Jamal. We'll bounce a couple of them back and forth.
Yeah, getting AEDs in all of our facilities, because there's no air traffic controller or a member of society that's less important than anyone else. So having that level of equipment available to everyone is something that's near and dear to me. Making sure that people understand that they're accounted for at all times and that they mean something to this agency. So all the provisions that improve quality of life, I'm all about those. I want to ensure that we put the PPL provisions into the CBA, have that aligned, strengthen our Article 33 provisions to ensure that people don't feel like they have to do a mother may I when they want to leave a facility. There's a multitude of things that can be improved. And it takes listening to the membership and finding out what are the things that are important to them. Sometimes you'll hear, well, you are in DC, so you're disconnected. Well, our connection is that we like being around people. So that connection will never drop as long as we get out and we spend time with our members, because we'll know what's important to them. So pursuing those things, 40% buyback, can we increase that to 50%? The agency's going to look to take it. There are a lot of provisions in the contract that can be brushed up. And I thank you for acknowledging that it's not only pay, it's quality of life and other things that protect us into perpetuity.
And I think that brings up the other important topic, that we introduce new topics that are relevant. for negotiations, and that is talking about our mental health as well, as we mentioned on it earlier. If I was, again, out there spitballing as a place to start, and I think we would definitely try to expand further. Then, what does 1 hour a pay period look like for you to be able to seek, counseling through EAP? It's paid time off that you could schedule in advance to go, and if you choose to use it, you do. And if you choose not to use it, okay, that's fine as well. But just start breaking the ground of how important it is to make sure we are fit for duty, that we're given the opportunity to deal with our actual life issues before, either controlling planes or addressing them over time, not just when we fall apart and collapse on the ground later on and everybody said, wow, how did that happen? So that would be an area that we would absolutely want to move forward into and propose for the contract.
Gotta unmute. Next question comes from iPhone Pool again. Why did Nick vote to extend the contract?
Who was it from? Oh, iPhone Pool. I don't know who iPhone Pool is, but wait, thank you for the tee up on that, because this has been one of those wonderful worlds where the anonymous forums were looking to just attack Jamal and I instead of leaders being able to go out and actually educate what occurred and what happened. When we left the last NEB meeting in San Francisco, this was brought up by our president, Rich Santa. He seemed to not deliver anything except that he is on an expedited timeline with a contract extension that one way or the other, that we have to figure out what we're going to do. Are we going to pursue it? We actually did the opposite. We didn't vote to extend the contract. We said, don't extend the contract unless we can secure the ability to negotiate in 2026. We think that was something that was left out of the last contract extension, is to say both parties intend to open it again instead of waiting till the expiration date. In this case, it's 2026. In that case, it would be 2029. We want to negotiate in 2026. And then if for some reason executive orders were in place, we could figure out how to legislatively defeat those. Do we want to take those on? But at least that leaves the option in our hands to do it and not dictated or controlled by, draconian executive orders that are meant to strip away our rights overall. So it wasn't a vote to extend. It was actually a vote to protect and give us the maximum opportunity to negotiate for all of you.
Yeah, and it gives us an opportunity to talk about what's happening, manipulation and distractions. That information was leaked, however you want to characterize it, and on Reddit before any of them even had an opportunity to get to their airplanes to leave San Francisco. It was intentional. That's not how you lead. You don't lead by votes and then casting out those in an effort to make someone look bad. That was actually trying to lean into leadership and protecting the union. You never seen that before. You got to ask yourself, why did you see it then? What was the angle? What was the intent? The intent was to sow division. The intent was to make Nick, and not only Nick, but several members of the NEB look bad when their intentions were, as always, to protect this union. So just be mindful of how that information comes to you. Again, Nick nor myself were on the board in 2021 when they determined that extending the CBA was the right thing to do. Despite that, because we're leaders, we don't hide from it. If on the board, we probably would have done the same thing. Our leadership style is B. We would have been more transparent. We'd have been more robust in our process of educating the members as to what that was about. But it's not really fair to Monday morning quarterback because we were in the middle of COVID. I have great friends, Joel Ortiz, Alex Navarro, Jim Marinetti, Clint Lancaster, that were part of that decision. And that decision, and I'm sorry if I left anyone out, that decision was to protect this union. So they did it then. When they didn't need your vote, they didn't care that you cared, being Mick and Rich. Now that they need your vote because they have contested elections, they're trying to cast this on Nick and myself. One, I wasn't on the National Executive Board, but two, I don't lie and I don't hide from hard issues. This is not very difficult. We have to protect ourselves, but we look to and we're dying to negotiate a contract to improve compensation for our membership.
And Ron, I just want to say, I did see you put in the chat that it was you. And brother, I wasn't thinking that you were hiding at all. I actually love that you teed up the question because it was a phenomenal one. So we can make sure the right information is getting out there. So thank you, brother.
Good. Next question comes from Cody. He said, why did NACA let our job get to the point that they are miserable? Isn't NACA's job to make union members' lives better?
Well, Cody, when you say NACA, you have to ask yourself, I guess, I don't personally feel miserable. I know that I wake up every day and I work my hardest to improve in the bounds that I can in the world of training. In the past, under Paul, I had much more expansive opportunities based on some of the levels of expertise that I had. That's been shrinking under our current president. But I guess you'd have to look to the top. Attitude reflects leadership. We have poor leadership right now, and we all feel it. It feels dreadful to me sometimes. I see it on the Hill. I see it with our counterparts in industry. I see it with our counterparts in the agency. I see the pain on some of my friends that I just mentioned, and the lack of direction and leadership from the national president. I see those things. I see people being willing to lie and mislead you, and it does lead to misery. We've been through incredibly tough times as a union. I joined this workforce, this union, under imposed work rules, and while we were not happy, we certainly weren't miserable. We had direction. We had a great leader in Paul Rinaldi, and we went forward. And that, well, actually, we didn't initially have Paul. We had a different president. Paul became the president, and he led us forward. That's what we're telling you right now. If you feel miserable, maybe it's time for change. It's definitely time for change, and we want to be that change to lead you out of that misery.
Yeah, the only other part I'd add on that is we need to get back to placing our energy where in helping our leadership and our membership be able to articulate why we're miserable. Is it because of a NACA policy, or is it because of the circumstances that the FAA has put us in, and that what are we now doing to fight back against it? And what is your power and voice in pushing back on those very things that are making us miserable? Our Constitution is our guiding light, and the very first part of it is to preserve, promote, and improve the working conditions for air traffic controllers and all aviation safety professionals. We take that serious, and we absolutely would ensure that not only do you know that's what we're discharging as our duties, but where the actual issues are lying in wait, what the agency is doing, because there's never going to be a time where we look at each other and say, yeah, we did it all. We came, we knocked it all out, and we're done, everybody. We can pack up shop, and there are no more issues out there for us to tackle anymore. Our members have to know these are the times that you elect the leaders. In the Marine Corps, it was a very prominent thing. In the time of peace, you prepare for war. That is what we must always be ready to do. We should always be preparing for war, making sure that our members and leaders understand that where we direct that energy when it comes time to do it.
Good. We're going to go to another question in the chat. Guys, this is going back to Incept because Gene Droz, they joined late. So there's going to be a lot of buildup here, but there's a lot of points, I think, that need to be made so you guys kind of fully understand what the issue is here. They say, we as a union have lots of problems that the leadership is not willing to listen to the lowest level members. They only listen to FAC reps and above. We have a big inset problem in which people in level 436 facilities that have only been in the agency for 2 years are getting to level 11 to 12 right away. Meanwhile, those in level 7 to 9 haven't been able to transfer after being in the agency for 10 plus years. Why not make improvements to the INSEP system to have people who have years as CPCs transfer to a higher level and make those in levels 4 through 6 move into the level 7 through 9? Why does the FAC rep decide who leaves and who doesn't by giving the opinions of a controller when the receiving FAC rep calls? This should not be allowed. Essentially, if elected, what changes would you guys make to the INSEPT process?
Nicole, I think if you give us some help, or maybe breaking down some components of that, I'll start at the beginning, and then maybe you can help us walk through some different parts to address. So I first want to come on, Gene, thank you for addressing that question. Today, I spent the morning in Monroe, Louisiana, and in Alexandria, DOD contract tower. That is what it's about, is engaged leaders being out with the members. And it's not about not listening to the lowest level members. Every single member of this union is important. And you're not your entire weight of your issue or your entire weight of something that you have an idea from does not generate from a 4 or a 12 in front of it. That doesn't. John Bratcher is the Southwest Regional Vice President out of a level 7 facility, or the alternate regional vice president. As him being in that position and helping us move forward, it's about being surrounded by experience. It's about being surrounded by different, levels of inclusion, different levels of diversity. So I just don't want any one of our members ever thinking that with Jamal and I in these positions, we both started in level 7 facilities. And it's important for us to get out there in front of our membership and help educate, because the investment that we make in our level 4 through 7 members' education is actually going to make the stronger union, because to your point, they're going to be the ones moving to other facilities anyways, which we do need to fix, but I'll let it take from there. So that was the part I wanted to open up with, Nicole, while you got a chance to maybe help us break down a few other points to address.
Well, I would want to address one of the points is, education, again, knowing how many facilities we have, right? Our 4 through 7s is a lot of our facilities are 4 through 7 facilities. I'm thinking, and it's off the cuff, within the range of about 150 or so of those facilities. So a lot of that, that's where people start. The academy places in 4 through 7s. We have some desire to start placings in our 8s for some high achievers at the academy, and we'll get that hopefully done in the next couple months. But I share emails with you. I don't mind sharing receipts. Everybody should know that by now. We present it to Mick and Brian. How about you do the NSW in the inverse? How about you start with those level 8 facilities, level 8s and 9s, and feed those first? Because we have people, going out to visit facilities, we've had people that will tell us, I'm at O'Hare, but I wanted to be at Midway, but the only way to get out of Rockland was to pick O'Hare because O'Hare is first every time. Anaheim, I wanted to go to Anaheim, but I had to put LAX down so I could get out of Santa Monica. But I really wanted to go to Anaheim. That's where home is. So we know those problems exist. I don't think the answer is restricting the levels that you can go to. I think that one would the system would bottleneck if we did that. But I do think that reimagining how we do the NSW, look, there's always going to be people bidding to your LAXs, your O'Hares, your Atlanta Towers. But when we have people that want to go to Peachtree DeKalb and Anaheim and Midway and Dallas Love, we got to look at those as opportunities, fill those first, and we'd still be able to move people within the NSW, advertise the rules, and make sure that it goes well. And I just see this, and I want to address it real quick. Why not get rid of the NSW? Getting rid of the NSW would be getting rid of our influence. The agency would halt movement. Nicole's on the NSW panel. She could tell you that every time when they come to the table, one of the things they want to do is not have moves at all. That would be wholly in their purview. So we'd just be sitting where we are until we got healthy. Nicole, can you add to that? We like experts to speak.
Sure. And I have another, Travis, I'm going to unmute you because this is your region and you're their NSW rep as well. But what Jamal just said is absolutely correct. Every NSW panel, the agency comes to the table and they start with 0. They do not want to move any controllers, and anybody that think like NSW is obviously not perfect. You've heard Jamal and Nick talk this entire time about, making changes to that process, listening to the members and listening to the regional reps who are the experts in this process. We've been in this process since 2018. And unfortunately we're not being listened to now when we have these ideas and, things to make the system better. So Jamal and Nick, they're absolutely correct. It does need a change. Getting rid of it, I can promise you, is not the answer.
I don't, Nicole, did you throw that to me? Did you throw it to Travis? I wanted to make sure.
Yeah, Travis, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, Nicole, you're absolutely right. If it were left up to the agency, INSEPT would cease to exist. We've heard it. Eights and nines are understaffed, and the proposal from the agency has always been, well, we should just fill the eights and nines, and the 4 through 7s are already full, and we'll just work our way up the ladder. I think the majority of the INSEPT group supports Nick and Jamal for very valid reasons. Mick being the lead on the INSEPT, we've seen how that goes. So, Cody, my number is all over the place. If you want to talk, I'll gladly fill you in.
I really appreciate it, Travis and Nicole. And like I said, that's part of Jamal and I's style. Surround yourself with the experts. We don't have to be the haver of all the good ideas. We need to be the catalyst for change, and those who are willing to stand up and say, "This is why we made the decision that we did, and this is how we're going to move forward now as a union." And that doesn't make it perfect either. We just keep trying to, change, adjust, redefine, and our the variables of the circumstances will always be a huge part of that. And right now, our circumstances are being the worst staff that we have been in over a decade, and trying to figure out how to, again, maybe have INSEPT in name, but you can rearrange the dishes on the table, and it's still a dinner table. But when they're set in a completely different way or manner or function, we'll be able to improve that system as well. And I think the last part of that, Nicole, and the question was something about the FAC rep.
Yeah,
What was that part of?
there was a piece in there, but Jean just asked me to unmute, so I would like to kick it over to them.
Okay.
Hey, Nick and Jamal. First, sorry that I came late. I'm at work and was on break, but the question is actually for both of you, but also I want to include Travis because I heard he was here. The NSEP needs improvement, and we all know it's not perfect, but it works. Okay, so my question is, why not allow the NSEP bring a solution to move in tiers, like tier 1, tier 2, or tier 3, and allow people to transfer, but at the same time, we have the problem issues here that we have FAC reps call the other FAC rep, FAC rep A call FAC rep B, and then if we have not everybody in this career gets along. We got type A personalities, and it happens and everywhere. But at the same time, that person can heal the career advance of somebody to go to a higher level. So why not focus on the performance of the person, of the record of that person, rather than a personal opinion? And then my question part that I was asking to, I believe her name is Nicole, so I apologize if that's not the name, was why we allow this thing to happen. So that will be my 2 questions. Sorry.
Thanks. And Gene, what facility, bud? Oh, he's muted again. I did want.
He's at El Paso, Jamal.
Okay.
El Paso. Sorry, Jamal. El Paso.
Thank you, brother. Nick, did you want to?
Sure. The beginning of that, I think we've recapped it a few times in case, and thank you for so many of you for sticking around as long as you have for these very important conversations, is we do want to make those changes. Again, we have to get in a room and negotiate these changes, but we are not invested in INSEPT has to stay the way it is forever. And that comes through, you don't want to bottleneck a system. If you look, I think Jamal had said it earlier, the 187 level 4 through 7s, there's 66 level 8 through 9s. And you talk about the totality of how many people are in those, 4 through 7s and bottlenecking them into an 8, 9, or 10. What we really need to do is increase targeted moving, where Jamal wants to move, like he said earlier, from El Paso to Midway. Okay, how do we go in and El Paso can have somebody placed, hired to be placed at El Paso, so Jamal can be released to go to Midway? That would be a smarter approach, and a system that is built to not just be so much of a lottery when your circumstances line up. That will be an endeavor that it takes to get there, but that is the type of concept that we want to get towards, of why, or we need to protect those that are in the bargaining unit now and do everything we can to help them get to where they're wanting their career to be. There is a controller that we met at a level 5 facility that said, I just want to get to this level 6 in Nebraska. I think it was in Nebraska, Jamal. And they said, the only way I can do it is if I go to Kansas City Center and wash out. That's the only time that this system would ever allow me to move there. Why aren't we going in and saying, okay, these are low hanging fruit. We can place somebody in that level 5 facility tomorrow, release that person as soon as they're certified at X%, and that person certified is their release to the level 6 facility. So again, all these are conceptual. We do want to move the ball forward from there, and then Jamal, I'll let you hit it and take it from there if you wanted to.
Yeah, I want to just directly touch on his question a little bit about, the FAC reps assessment of the personnel and talking to other FAC reps. There's always going to be a human element to this, but again, that's why leadership, having that leadership that then passes that leadership down to the regional vice presidents, onto the FAC reps, to tell people the importance of being impartial. Does this person have the aptitude and ability to do the job? I'm the last person that ever wants to block anyone. I've had people that have had personality conflicts that I've absolutely recommended for positions because they have the capability and abilities. So, having that permeate throughout the organization, having that as a standard, talking to the FAC reps about that, leading by example will go a long ways toward what you're saying, Gene. We don't want anyone being blocked for any reason. And if you think that their abilities are the impediment, then you should be, as a FAC rep, working to increase and improve their abilities through simulation, through part task training, through whatever means there are there, so that they can also get where they want to do. The union shouldn't be the impediment to anyone ever going to seek wherever they want to be. So I hope that properly answers your question, brother.
Yeah, that's slightly a microcosm, right, of the system as it's designed. It's almost a cutthroat when it comes time to a selection panel to be up, and I think moving away from a place like that where it offers long-term solutions and ideas, and honestly, just even the hope of knowing, oh, in 2 to 3 years I'll be able to do X because these factors are going into place. That comes from education, information as well, and we'll get rid of some of that mentality and attitude and assist with it overall. We'll forever be in a competitive job, but as Jamal absolutely captured it, we should be working to help people be able to overcome those, not hinder them more.
Nicole's on mute.
No, I'm muted. Travis, go ahead. You're unmuted.
Okay, I'll be brief. So, and this is in support of Nick and Jamal. I'm going to speak a little bit about how the current process works and some of the things that we've had, because you guys have brought it up talking about NSEP. We had one panel specifically where 13 members were skipped during the panel. Mick, as the lead, and Brian sat there and allowed this to happen, and we walked out of the meeting. Later, it got undone because the RVPs in the regions that were affected brought it to the NEB and discussed that, and Nick can elaborate on that. On top of that, we just had a panel. We had 4 members where the selecting official added some arbitrary factors in the amount of time that an employee was certified, which is currently not a requirement, nor was it negotiated in the rules. We didn't stop those at the panel. The regional reps were just there as observers. We're not there to negotiate, and that's Mick and Brian's job to do so. And in my opinion, as the rep for the Southwest region, and I think Nicole would 100% agree with me on this, I think we missed the mark. We walked out of the room, and we had a telcon afterwards, and I will say that Mick was very adamant that the entire INSEP process was management's rights. And after that, I called Nick, and we put that back on the table. So those 4 members ended up going back and fixing that. But again, this attests to Nick's power and leadership and our ability as leaders to move the union forward and how movement's going to change. Mick is not the way. Nick and Jamal are.
Appreciate that, brother. Thank you.
So we have a few more questions. I think there's just 3 right now. We'll probably have to limit it there. And then we definitely don't want anybody to leave with questions unanswered. So keep putting your questions in the chat, or raising your hand, whatever. If we have to take the questions offline, we absolutely will. The first one, what are your thoughts on, this is from RVG again, sorry. What are your thoughts on the union endorsing political candidates in the current political climate? It seems it's a bad idea. When NACA says we endorse blank, half the membership feels alienated. If our guy loses, we set ourselves up for hostility from the winning administration. Even when our guy wins, all we get is an extension. As president, Nick, would you consider stopping political endorsements?
I love the question because coming from the Southwest region, obviously we are a very diverse group with heavy ties politically in either direction. I think something that we need to get back to understanding is what does that endorsement mean and what is it doing? And then what the second part of it, and I'm sure Jamal will hit it, is the leverage that we should be using from it. Maybe we haven't maximized that leverage in there, but one of the things that you never do, just like a union member, is you sit silent on the sideline. That speaks volumes as well. We've seen right now this union say, where is Rich Santa in this fatigue policy when the administrator is coming in and imposing this upon us? Now we have our rights that protect us to go in and negotiate impact of implementation, but why weren't we there? Why did we not have a heads up? Why is this relationship strained and broken? And as Jamal mentioned it earlier, it's because we don't believe that we have strength or somebody that's being respected as the president of NACA. When we are saying, where is Rich on that? That's the same thing that's said when the AFL-CIO, let's take the President Biden endorsement, as well as the AFL-CIO represents millions, multi-millions of laborers across the country. They actually look to our organization to say, are you in the endorsement of, for what's best for labor? Not what's best for Nicole or Gene or Travis or somebody else. So what is best is this in this candidate for labor overall? And that's the message that we want to send. It doesn't mean that you can't be part of this union and have a different thought of that. But when you're going to go vote, if you're voting for somebody who's going to help us move it forward in labor, this would be the person. You definitely don't want an anti-labor one in there. But yes, let's call the other part of this too is where Biden is called the most labor-friendly administration there is. He's walked on the lines with UAW. He supported the AFL-CIO. And you're right. We have absolutely not seen anything when it comes to us. Now, we haven't seen anti-union come our direction, but that is, again, a fundamental, foundational point of where our union leadership and the president needs to change to be going out there and say, and being a presence and a force to have these discussions and not be hidden in the background. And those very things of a president walking by you, standing by you, but ultimately realize those presidents don't negotiate either. And that comes from the president of this union as well, and putting us in a position to have the public interest our side, the obstacles cleared, and give the team the ability to go in and move the ball forward for this union. So no, I would not look at, canceling that. I think it's educating the membership of why we do it.
Was that Nicole? Was that Cody that asked the question again?
No, it was RVG.
RVS. Okay, RVG. So thanks again, NACA family member RVG. I would say this: education, the history of this union. We did endorse Barack Obama, and because we endorsed Barack Obama, within 100 days of his administration being placed in power, we were back at the table. To be on the president's first 100-day agenda is a big deal. Align that with who we had as our president of the union, a person that had integrity, credibility, followed through on the things he said he was going to do. It's not just about the president. We're equal stake in this. Who you would put in leadership of NACA gets their credibility from the job that NACA members do, but they can burn that credibility rapidly. Our credibility is on fire. We're trying to sound the alarm so that you understand. This, what you see, is not the only way this union can function. This union has functioned at very great heights through considerable issues, Sleepgate, sequester, furloughs. We've always shined because we've shined since I've been in the agency because we had a really special leader. We don't right now. We have a poor leader. So what you're seeing is not indicative of what a union looks like. And Nick said, Well, they haven't been anti-labor. This current administration imposed on us. The FAA administrator is Senate confirmed and presidentially appointed. He imposed on us fatigue mitigation rules. That shows you the degradation of NACA's influence in this agency. You deserve better. That's what we're asking you for. That's why we're running for these positions, so we could provide you the better.
Okay, we're going to take our last live question because I think after the responses, it'll give us time to wrap up and everything before the hour. This comes from Mike R. How bad do things have to get before NACA repeals its vow never to strike, even if it's a symbolic request to Congress? Flight attendants now make as much as controllers at level 9 facilities, and we can't renegotiate until 2029.
Let's start off with correcting some of the narrative. We absolutely can negotiate before 2029. Our intent, and as it stands today, we can negotiate in 2026. And that's exactly what we've called our president to go and do, is to ensure the only way we extend a contract is if we still have the ability to negotiate in 2026. Jamal and I will find a path forward for us to either, if there are executive orders in effect that do not allow us to negotiate, that we will find ways to either legislatively move those out of our ways or make the tough determinations of how we move forward, or look at different avenues of negotiating, such as through MOU instead of term negotiations. So the 2029 part, we want to just make sure it's clear we'll be negotiating in 2026. The other aspect of that is, when you take a look at how bad the things have to get, I think there's nothing worse than when you try to ask, 10,000 to 11,000 air traffic controllers to get, we saw this happen in 1981, right? 11,345 air traffic controllers fired in a 48-hour notice. We have become more creative, more engaged legislatively, LR wise, and threatening a strike isn't going to be the thing that flexes in my humble opinion. It's not going to be the thing that goes out and says, oh, well, look at the air traffic controllers. They're finally making noise. It's by being smart and strategic and being our own media and getting out and telling success stories of what we're overcoming despite the current obstacles, despite the current circumstances, despite the all-time low in staffing, despite the economy, and how we're here to serve and help the American public and win their sentiment over, not just find ways to delay and make them mad and gain attention that way. We've had this agency in the industry rally against us before. And if you were around in 2006, it was called the White Book. And it was very clearly said that the entire industry had finally done something. They had united. You know who they united against? The air traffic controllers and NACA. And that was a huge push. We didn't recover for years from the White Book. And that's when many of the things were still permissive subjects that we had in our contract at that time. So all that to be said, I think we just have to be more nimble in going out and telling our story, being on offense instead of waiting for defense and saying how horrible the things have to get and saying the alarms are only here when it's horrible. It's by saying, here's what we're able to do. Here's how we're able to serve. And here's how this union and these laborers are working for you each and every day. And we capitalize on that.
Yeah, we're currently limited by our leadership. I mean, the Biden administration comes in, eradicates the executive orders. There was no limitation on what could be done. We could have asked immediately to negotiate a CBA. It wasn't interesting. It didn't matter because people were comfortable in their seats. Your current president didn't mention anything. In fact, he said the slate book should be extended for a very long time. He didn't mention any of these things because they didn't matter to him. They weren't front of mind. NACA members have to be front of mind at all times. And again, Nick has said it. We've all said it. I hope it's very clear. 2029, that's made up. That's made up to scare you. As it stands right now, 2026 is when we can negotiate. In the Green Book, in the Red Book, we moved pay through memorandum of understanding. When you have good leaders, when you have people that are credible in their positions, agencies work with you. They understand what we are to the GDP. They understand what we are to the national airspace system. They do want to work with us. They got to have a willing partner. They have to have a competent partner. They have to have a partner that is willing to bring the right people to the table They aren't interested in fancy t-shirts. They aren't interested in screaming rhetoric. They're interested in serious-minded people with know-how and ingenuity. We're those people. We want to move the air traffic controllers and all air navigational safety professionals forward. You just have to be willing to understand we haven't always been here. The common denominator is your current leadership. It's not NACA's fault. It's not your fault as air traffic controllers. We know what the problem is.
Okay. Cody, I did see that you had another question in there about mandatory overtime. We're going to take that offline. So I don't want you or anybody to think that you're being ignored. We are going to close this out. We will answer your question after. So before everybody leaves, before everybody starts logging off, I do want to encourage you guys, please join, go to teamndjh.com. It's our website. You can see all of Nick and Jamal's position statements. You can see a lot of the things that we talked about here today. You'll also see a volunteer link. We are going to be using paper ballots this year. So we are going to need people in the facilities that are, checking to make sure everybody's addresses are on file correctly, checking to make sure that they receive their ballots, that they return their ballots. We want to make sure that this campaign is responsible for that we are responsible for people being able to exercise the right to vote. So if you're interested, you can reach out to any of us. Travis Lumberger, again, you guys know his name from NSEPT. He's also going to be working with us on that. So you can reach out to him to volunteer if you're willing to do that or anything with our campaign. You can see all the socials there. Brittany's been posting them throughout. She just posted them again in the chat. So please, visit us on the socials, not just the website. You can see some information there. But with that, Nick and Jamal, if you guys don't have anything, you can close it out.
The only thing I'll close out with is this. Election season, you're going to hear a ton of rhetoric. There's going to be anonymous social medias. There's going to be a stoking of fears of, oh my gosh, just give them 3 more years. And the guys who've been here since 2018 will fix it all. Because somehow the NACA insider of Nick and Jamal have come in to, thwart everything and put us in a horrible position. This membership said, and one of the things that rang loud and clear after the last non-election, because everybody was appointed, was that they want a choice. Because it inspires conversation, it sparks ingenuity, and it brings new conversations to the table. So that is what we're here to do. And we are leaders that will stand by our word. We will absolutely educate you. And you know what? It's a perfect time to close because the place that, we were at anyways is wrapping up and closing for the day. So that just goes to show the success of the Southwest region, the level of engagement. And we look forward to every single one of you. Get out there and use your voice to vote. Do not let this be an election where you said somebody else will make the decision for me, or the center's got it, or the level 4s don't really have a voice in it. Every single one of you has the ability to cast a ballot for saying, this is the future I believe in, and this is the direction I want to go. And with Jamal and I, that's going to be open, engaged, honest, and knowing that we're in this together. So be with us, vote with us, and we look forward to serving you in the future as your president and executive vice president. Take care, all. We look forward to talking to you soon.